12th, November the 30th. It's been a wonderful week for the Raptors, which ended in not so wonderful fashion against the Phoenix Suns. And joining me to talk about the week is Andrew. Hey, Andrew.
Hello, sir.
Last time we tried to do this pod, you kind of passed out at 5 p.m. and woke up at 2 p.m. In a haze. Are you okay now? Are we good to go? Because we need you.
I'm well rested. I got a full day's sleep last Sunday afternoon, so I'm back.
So you're gonna be like Corey Joseph and not Terrence Ross for this podcast.
I will be loosely coherent, maybe somewhere in between the two, but like a Patrick Patterson, like once you write me off, I'll hit a 3, but I'm not going to be great. Look, under promise and over deliver.
All right. Also, we got Shyam Bhaskaran making his third appearance on the Rapcast.
Yeah, that's third.
How are you doing, Shyam?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Not so good after that one, but hanging in there.
But hey, on this show we're going to change it up a little bit. We usually start with the latest game, which is the Suns in this case. And we'll get to that, but we're going to start at the start of the week because it was overall a pretty productive 2-1 week for the Raptors, who got two very exciting wins against the Cleveland Cavaliers and Washington Wizards before falling to the Suns at home. So let's start at the top and talk about Drake Night. Any one of you were fortunate enough to go to Drake Night?
No, I couldn't make it out. Andrew, how about you?
I will unfortunately not be able to wear that black and gold headband at pickup basketball games. I didn't make it in.
Nah.
Probably gonna sell for a couple $100 on eBay, right?
I'm not gonna buy it.
That's what happened last year, actually. Those black and gold shirts, they were going for $250 for like a day. After which people realized that the supply for these T-shirts is quite high, and the price is a little bit inflated. So next day they were going for like $25.
Yeah, the market adjusted quickly.
It was very quick to react. So I haven't checked what the headbands are going for, but presumably not too much. And headbands are one of those things, Andrew, that generally, if you're a good ball player at the amateur level or at the pickup level, you don't show up to a court wearing those.
You know, here's the thing. I have longer hair, so I wear the headband to keep it out of my eyes because it can be a problem sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We can't all do the Louis Scola, old Steve Nash, tuck it perfectly behind your ears like you're a 90s sitcom star, but yeah, there is practicality to it. But if you can't be like an out of shape dude wearing the headband, calling for the ball outside, and then airballing threes. That is the usual go-to move.
There's a time and place for them.
Yeah.
Shyam, you ball and you ball or what's going on with you?
Yeah. I played competitive ball in high school and stuff. Never rocked a sweatband though. Never rocked a sweatband. Yeah,
No.
just
No. We're gonna have a...
Well, I don't have long hair though, so.
All right, so Drake Night, one of the giveaways was the headband, and once Drake did his media scrum, which had like girls screaming and everything, the game got underway, and lo and behold, the Raptors actually pulled this one off, playing a tight game in the fourth quarter. So some big performances. Hey, the guy who stood out for me in this game was Bismack Biyombo, who had an insane fourth quarter, and I remember. There were a few plays late in that game where the Cleveland Cavaliers defense completely left him open. He was running pick and rolls with Kyle Lowry, and as usual, whenever that happens, it means a double for the ball handler, and the double happened. And nobody moved over to get Biyombo and Sham. Clear path to the rim, 3 dunks, I believe it was, and that was essentially like one of the key factors the Raptors were able to pull this one off.
Yeah, I mean, amazing by Bismack Biyombo standards, but for anybody else, I mean, those are open dunks in the fourth quarter. Basically, nobody within 3 feet of him. But I mean, yeah, like that's all we ask for from Biyombo with JV out is just provide some sort of presence on offense and play defense like he did today. So I think he was amazing, and I think the thing that stood out for me though in that game was wire to wire. That was probably the first game where our offense just gelled for 48 minutes, like wire to wire. And we've been seeing spurts of just lulls and ons and offs and DeMarre Carroll threes, and then we go cold for 6 minutes. And that was the first game where we kind of just wire to wire played very well offensively.
Yeah. Andrew, what stood out for you in that game? The Raptors shot 51% in that game.
Yeah, shots dropped, but they built quality shots. I think it was more the reality of them really working the pick and roll, really making the ball move around, and they played a game where they weren't just trying to get lucky and shoot a high percentage on difficult shots, which is kind of what we saw by the end of the week, and instead it was manufacturing really good quality looks and breaking the defense down. And I mean, just what you're talking about with Bismack Biyombo. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers are really playing the skating report sort of to the extreme, which is that, the Raptors ball handlers are really, really bad at passing out of the pick and roll and rarely ever use the roll man. And Bismack Biyombo is a bad shooter. So it was like they just didn't even anticipate that it was a possibility for him to receive a pass and then put it in the basket. So they didn't guard that whatsoever. And it turns out he can hit an uncontested dunk.
Well, the jury's kind of out on that one because he had his fair share of misses as well against Washington and Phoenix as well. But yeah, I mean Bismack Biyombo stepping up and finishing when it's needed. But to me, the unsung hero in that game was DeMarre Carroll, who was 4 for 11, but he held LeBron pretty much in check. LeBron was 6 for 16, 11 for 12 from the free throw line. He didn't blow up. That's the thing with LeBron. It's like whenever you're playing the Cavs, you got to make sure LeBron doesn't go off for like 45 and a triple double. And if you keep him under that, you have a chance. And Andrew, DeMarre Carroll's performance against LeBron, commendable.
Yeah, you contain that. That's what you kind of hope to do. LeBron still had a very good game, but he wasn't able to completely dominate. And when they were taking him out of the game and making him shoot, like pass outside to the guys spotting up, those shots were dropping sometimes. But I mean, when it's Richard Jefferson and Mo Williams and Jared Cunningham that are taking those spot up 3-point chances, you're much happier with that. And the way that DeMarre Carroll was able to help steer LeBron into the help defense of usually Bismack Biyombo was really solid.
And that's working out generally well. I think the Raptors have shaded their the attack towards Biyombo, who's done well. And Shyam, the one thing about Biyombo is that even though he contests the drive or he's available to contest any shots at the rim, he doesn't always seem to be out of rebounding position. He's got some good recoverability where he can contest and also come back. And we've seen JV try to do that and fail at that because once JV commits to trying to defend an incoming guard, he's kind of doing that and he's completely out of rebounding position. Biyombo seems to have a little more recoverability where he's able to be kind of in two places at once.
For sure. I think Biyombo is a more athletic, rebounder and shot blocker than JV is. So he can kind of hold his position when he comes back down, off of a block or a shot contest. So I think I totally agree. I think Biyombo does a better job of that. I mean, obviously he also takes away a bunch of stuff on offense as a result, but I mean, I think Biyombo's doing his role. I think he's doing exactly what we thought he would do. And another thing that stood out was the well-balanced offense. I thought was, Luis Scola basically dominated the first 14 minutes of that game. Carroll went 3 for 6 from three. DeRozan contributed. Lowry had an unbelievable game, not so surprising, but unbelievable. Guys like Johnson off the bench. I think T. Ross was the only guy. Or no, T. Ross had a couple of threes that game, right? Yeah. So I think basically everybody contributed. So it was just a good solid win.
Kyle Lowry was 11 for 17 for 27 points. Obviously no Kyrie Irving in there, so he went up against I think it was Cunningham that he went up against. So overall a good game for Lowry and a big win for the Raptors on Drake night. They're 3-0 on Drake night. And on the last pod I was like, well, they shouldn't pick this as Drake night because it might be a loss and
You wanted to protect the streak?
Well, yeah. I don't know. I want people to have a good time when they go to Drake night, not come out with an L. So,
I think the idea is between Drake night and the LeBron being in town. I didn't look it up, but I'm sure those are the most expensive tickets of the year by far.
Yeah. Drake night's a thing now, though. It's people around the league know about it. It's become a thing, and it's funny. Did you guys hear LeBron's reaction after the game to when he was asked about Drake night?
What did he say?
I think it was one of the Toronto reporters who asked him about it, and he just kind of he just was like, what? And then the Cleveland PR guy was just like, next question. Total disregard. It was almost like when they stood on the court when the Raptors dance pack was doing their thing, just complete disregard.
Yeah, there's a GIF out there where all 5 Cavs are on the court ready for the game to start, but all the Raptors dancers are right there, they haven't finished their routine yet. So it's just this awkward 5 seconds where they're waiting for them to finish and.
It looked like 2K was glitching or something.
But the interesting to notice in that GIF is what J.R. Smith is looking at. So it's quick.
You don't say.
So the game ended. James Johnson played 5 minutes. Didn't take a shot. Got a rebound in it. Went home. Took a nap around 12 a.m. He kind of couldn't sleep. Opened his phone up and tweeted. And what did he tweet, Andrew?
He tweeted a complaint. I don't have the wording in front of me. It seems like you're going to me to read it out.
Underutilized?
Yeah. Hashtag mood underutilized. And
underutilized.
At the same time, in a different area of Forest Hill, Dwane Casey, a few hours later, woke up and said, "How can I torment James Johnson today?" And he opened his Twitter, and lo and behold, there it is. Hashtag mood, hashtag underutilized, and that was enough for Dwane Casey. Like, yeah, I got him now.
The move should have been for James Johnson to be like, that was in reference to my relationship.
That's exactly. Like, how do we know he's referring to
like,
his
this
basketball?
Is passive aggressively complaining about my sex life with my partner.
Maybe his wife does all the dishes and he wants to do them, and he feels underutilized.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, right?
Why does it have to be related to basketball? I mean, why are we all assuming this is the case?
Yeah, I love that he tried to get it trending too.
What did he do? Tell me.
Oh, no, just like with the hashtag,
okay.
Like that's the whole purpose of it. It's like just in case, this is a thing.
In case it catches on, eh? But props to him for actually not deleting the tweet, and then a few hours later, essentially apologizing for his mini outburst on Twitter, and said that he just wants to be part of something special, and blah blah blah. So props to James Johnson for actually not deleting the tweet and sticking by his words. What did you make of this, Andrew?
I mean, it's not surprising. It's someone who's frustrated about his role, and we see this all the time in all sorts of different sports. I think it happens much more often that we just don't hear about it, but things like Twitter exist where you can just have a momentary impulse at midnight while lying in bed beside your underutilized sexual partner and decide that you just want to get that out. So that's the reality of today. I think it's a bad look, but it's also really hard to blame this guy for just being human.
At the same time, Shyam, I mean, again, it's after a win at home on Drake night against the Cavs. Like, if you want to tweet that like today after Phoenix.
No, I agree. I'd agree with you there. That seemed a bit weird, but at the same time, I mean, I'm surprised this didn't come earlier. I mean, we know the guy's human. Like, I would feel the same way, and I think like we saw this coming. It was a long time coming, and I think. Like, when it happened, it was almost like, I can't believe this didn't happen sooner, because this guy must be, so frustrated that he's not coming off the bench. But a part of me thinks there's something more, and I think he kind of knows why he's not getting playing time, if there's something more. Maybe behind closed doors, him and Casey have been having conversations, but at the same time, it's just, after a win, I totally agree. I mean, everything was good in Raptorland after that win, and then to see that was kind of weird.
Yeah, and so he played the next game against Washington. He got 5 minutes, and he played, I thought, really well in those 5 minutes. He went 2 for 3, got a steal, a block in limited amounts of time, but then he only played 5 minutes, and that was my problem. And the two stats that I always compare now is Terrence Ross's playing time and James Johnson's playing time. Those, to me, are the first thing that I look at the box score. And Terrence Ross in 20 minutes was 1 for 4, 2 rebounds, 3 turnovers, just a terrible game, but he still managed to get minutes over James Johnson. So we'll talk about the Washington game just momentarily, but like if the goal here, Andrew, is to win games, I don't see how you don't play James Johnson ahead of Terrence Ross, because we're past the whole let's develop our young players thing. We're now in let's win games thing. So if you look at it through that lens, I mean, James Johnson is the clear-cut candidate for me, because I'll tell you why. Because one, he's the only bench player who knows how to move without the ball. He's the only guy who can actually spot when to cut and cut to the rim and catch the ball and finish. He's the only bench player who can catch the ball and actually drive to the rim other than Corey Joseph. And he's the only bench player who is extremely aggressive going to the basket and taking it to the rim and not being passive. He's an aggressive guy. Combine all those together, and I don't see a single reason why he doesn't play ahead of Terrence Ross. It boggles my mind.
Well, I think that's doubly true when you look at how, I mean, there was a lot of talk with Ross going to the bench at the start of the year and how that was going to enable him to play his natural position as shooting guard and really be better utilized there. And they're playing him at small forward again on bench units now. So it really takes away that idea of why is it that, it makes it much easier to play James Johnson instead of Ross in those scenarios. There's probably some power forward minutes that could be going to James Johnson as well. It does seem like there is something else that we're not following, because he is very effective offensively when he's in there, and they are struggling to develop good offense when Corey Joseph isn't making something happening single-handedly with the second unit.
Shyam?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I think Casey kind of views James Johnson as, he almost views him as like a last resort, which is so depressing, because it's like when he views him as like, just to mix it up, when things aren't going well, which is when he went to him against Washington, right? When they were just, pounding out. It was a grinded out type of game. It was ugly. And, he kind of just went to James Johnson as a last resort. So it's depressing to see. It'd be great if he was the second guy off the bench after Corey Joseph. Because I agree with you. I think he should unequivocally be ahead of Terrence Ross in the rotation, but it's just not working out. And I think it's going to take another 15 to 20 stinkers from Terrence Ross for Casey to finally kind of, park that aside. Or maybe he doesn't. I don't know, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about the Washington game. This was a Corey Joseph obviously winning it at the buzzer. Let's skip to the end in this game. It should be said that Washington was playing their fourth game in 5 nights, and they were missing Drew Gooden and Gary Neal, and I think Nene was out as well. So they were definitely shorthanded and playing, a pretty tough stretch. The Raptors got in there, close game for the most part, and then the Wizards kind of took the lead in the fourth quarter. The one instance that I want to call out is this. Dwane Casey did this like twice over the last week or so, Andrew, is that, down 3 late in the game with like less than 10 seconds left, he goes for the 2. What's up with that thinking, man?
I mean, it's not a bad strategy as long as you can execute it quickly. Like, the idea is they're more focused on not giving up a 3, and oftentimes teams will take away any kind of a big man because they're just worried about guarding shooters. And it opens up a quick lane to a 2, which is a higher percentage shot. And then the idea is you can now foul or try again for a turnover, and you have the opportunity then for a 2. I mean, it's not crazy. But you have to make that 2 happen really quickly.
Yeah. And on the road, I think I'd go for the 3 in that situation. But I mean, like those types of things have to come into play too, right? If the team isn't shooting well, which they weren't, then the 2 doesn't sound as bad, just especially if you can execute it quickly, but they didn't. I think they had 5 seconds left or something,
they were
right?
11
Luckily,
for 24 from 3. Between 46%
Yeah, those are shots that are happening in motion a lot more naturally, though, than when a team has 5 guys out there set to just take that away.
Exactly, and sort of has to game plan to shoot the 3, right? Which is different, but I mean, I don't know.
So that.
I was gonna say, look at what happened at the end of the Phoenix game, where Phoenix knows that the Raptors have to make a 3.
We'll get there.
Yeah, all right.
We'll get there. So that strategy of going for 2 almost backfired, but it didn't, because John Wall went to the free throw line and to basically make it a 3-point game by hitting 2 free throws, and he blew them both. And you kind of knew deep down that, the Raptors, whenever they play in Washington, something's always in store in the final few seconds. I remember Anthony Parker, Hedo Turkoglu, Mo Peterson. The list kind of goes on of buzzer beaters
3
in
Hall
Washington.
of Famers.
And well, Anthony Parker's probably in a Hall of Fame somewhere in the world. And the Raptors ran a play with DeMar DeRozan coming off the curl. He curled down towards the rim, drew the double, and kicked it out to Corey Joseph, who just drilled the 3. He was wide open, took it well, and the game was over. So, Shyam, there's a huge contingent on Twitter, which is essentially saying that was a Casey that was a play that Casey didn't actually draw. That was more like DeMar DeRozan actioning thing on his own.
Oh my God!
Where do you Isn't that a bit of an extreme criticism of Casey at this point?
I think at this point people are looking at anything to throw at Casey. I mean, that is a designed play. You saw Lowry in the backcourt too as a decoy. And with DeRozan coming off that screen, the I guess the idea was to kind of get the defense to overcompensate and kind of shift over, and DeRozan just immediately saw the weak side, kicked it out, and Joseph was open for the 3. And it's not like the defense is really paying attention to Corey Joseph, so to speak. And DeRozan's getting better in the past couple of seasons passing. So I think that, when we saw that, it was a great look, great feed, and he just drilled it. So I mean, you can't not say that Casey drew that up. Like that's a designed play. Corey Joseph's job in that situation is to stand there and wait for the pass because he's the weak side. So, I mean, that's just people hating on Casey at that point.
Yeah. Andrew, DeMar DeRozan, for me, spectacular play, that one. I mean, he could have easily forced a shot when he got close to the rim, as he sometimes tends to do, but he had the composure to spot Joseph and made just a beautiful chest pass right in the numbers, and he was able
brilliant
to make
play. I was 100% positive that he was about to force a bad shot up into that double team and lose the game when he made that really good pass. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a really good play, and it was nice to see.
The Jerry Stackhouse shootouts with Corey Joseph are paying off, I guess.
Is that what he's doing?
Well, he's spending basically after practice, every practice with Jerry Stackhouse, just shooting threes constantly, and I guess it's paying off.
I think he should be working with Patrick Patterson to fix his shot right now. That's the deal here. So great win in Washington. Overall, just checking the box score for this one. Kyle Lowry 9 for 19, 27 points again. DeMar DeRozan 8 for 20, 20 points. So the two big guns firing again. The bench, Corey Joseph is the bench right now, and he was 5 for 7 for 12 points. Overall, it's the bench right now, Andrew, essentially Corey Joseph and what he's able to do, because he's not really getting much help at this point. And I guess that's where we start with the Phoenix game. Is the Raptors dropped this one 107-102 to the Suns on Sunday. Again, a close game overall. Phoenix always had the edge. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry played 34 minutes for Lowry, 37 for DeRozan, 5 for 14 Kyle Lowry, 11 for 20 DeMar DeRozan. Heavy usage for both these guys. But in the end, man, the stat that sticks out here is the Raptors bench had 25 points versus Phoenix, which had 52.
Yeah. I think we started to see in this game from the Raptors internally starting to acknowledge that they really have an issue with their bench. Is Casey has long had a commitment to trying to do full lineup changes almost, and really not doing a great job of integrating the minutes. And he started in the last couple games to stagger DeMar and Lowry a little bit more efficiently, so that there's usually one of those two guys on the floor, and that we're not seeing the full 5-man bench unit, because it's really having a hard time scoring. Teletovic went off tonight, and that was a different thing as well, where he was 6 of 7 from 3, and Phoenix's bench just scored really, really well. But yeah, there's a real problem of depth.
When you look at Teletovic's 3, Shyam, is there fault in those threes, or is there how do you see those threes? Were they bad defense, or just we underestimated him, or what did you see there?
Well, they weren't surprises, right? We've seen these threes in this building a couple of years ago, and I think it was just he got hot because we put Bebe in the game in the second quarter, and he's not used to guarding in the NBA period, but he's not used to guarding out there that far out, and Teletovic was just torching us. And once he got hot, he's the type of guy where he can shoot it from half court once he's hot. So he got hot and he burned us. And it surprised me that we continued not to put a body on him. In the third quarter, he was still hitting wide open threes. I just don't understand how nobody put a body on him. But, that's when Casey went to James Johnson, going back to the earlier point. Once he saw that being an issue, he put in James Johnson. But it was until it got to that point, he didn't even consider it. So, I don't know. The threes absolutely burned us in the first half. So,
And I felt Eric Bledsoe's strength coming off that high screen was really a factor. He only shot 5 for 17 in this game, but the guy is essentially way too quick using off that high screen, and he was blowing past Lowry with pretty much ease and getting into that paint, and then finding shooters, Teletovic, or whether going to the rim and getting fouled. 9 for 11 from the free throw line. His strength, Andrew, to me was something that was a key.
Sure, factor. And especially through the second half, they really had us trying to overhelp and collapse and bringing guys across that couldn't get there in time to try to take away the driving lanes, and that was what was opening up a lot of the wide open kickouts for 3. And the game was fairly sloppy defensively in the second half as well. Casey was hammering at halftime about how the transition D was a major problem, and it wasn't that we were giving up fast break points, but the Raptors were just losing their man in transition a lot. And Phoenix seemed to get a lot of good looks from 3 in the first couple seconds of the shot clock, where someone just hadn't picked up Teletovic yet, or someone hadn't found Knight, or something like that, where they're waiting to get set, or they're looking around for who they're going to have, and Phoenix has already established some sort of offense, which is, I guess, what you can do when you don't take 8 seconds to develop a dribble handoff.
And Shyam, did you notice that Phoenix defensively essentially switches everything? They have the personnel, with the exception of center with Alex Len, and maybe even him sometimes.
Yeah.
They essentially switch 1 to 4 whenever they want.
Yeah, and those guys can shoot it. Lore, Len, Teletovic, their big men can shoot, and that's not something we've seen yet this season. So Like, it was tough guarding out there. Like, every single guy I mean, the guards didn't shoot it well. Like, Brendan Knight, 6 of 17, Bledsoe, like, 5 for 17. Like, it's not like they shot well, but the big men, like, just torching us from 10, 12 feet out. Like, and that's what killed us, I think.
And that's been Phoenix's formula this season, kind of. I mean, their guards aren't exactly shooting the lights out, but somehow they're being very productive because their entire unit is very mobile and they're multi-talented. They can all kind of put it on the floor, drive. And I was actually surprised by Alex Len, who looked really good, man. He's got a few moves there, which make you wonder, like, if he hones some of those skills, like he might be a pretty good center in the league.
For sure. I mean, now with the big men. With guys like Porzingis and Alex Len, like I think that's what we're seeing now, right? Like these big men shoot it. So I think, yeah, absolutely. I think he could be an all-star.
Yeah. And John Lower somehow dominated like a 5-minute period of that game too. That was weird. That was really weird.
Yeah. I know there was that third quarter? What was it? He was
it was like he hit a couple threes. He just like drove past for a dunk and then had a cut for another heavy dunk. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. One of the highlights for me was PJ Tucker's like rebound and then put back, like surrounded by like 4 Raptors in the final minute. That was incredible.
Did you Bismack Biyombo, we talked about, we gave him a lot of praise for that Cleveland game, but here I think he picked up 3 or 4 offensive fouls setting screens.
Oh my god!
And the last one came with like 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, which was huge. It was a big play when he turned the ball over. So overall, his screen setting, Andrew, has been fairly competent, and he's been getting away with it. But for this game, somehow they called it really tightly. Because to me, he was setting the same screens he was setting against.
Sure, which, I mean, that can be a referee thing sometimes as well. And there was one tonight where I think PJ Tucker was just sort of pulling him along with him, and he got burned that way. But the one right at the end and the one a little bit before that, he's clearly not coming to a stop before setting his screens. He's just kind of like motoring into them and carrying his momentum through it. And it's a call that lots of people have made careers on getting away with. Like Kevin Garnett never set a legal screen in his entire career. But Bismack Biyombo is probably going to get called more often than not for that. I mean, he's somehow fouling much, much less defensively than he was at the start of the season and the preseason, which is great for him playing bigger minutes now. But the offensive fouls were a problem tonight.
Yeah. And we got to mention DeMar DeRozan, who I thought had a beautiful game. I mean, I've been critical of his game sometimes, but 29 points, 7 assists, 11 for 20 shooting. I thought he was sublime overall with his decision making. I noticed that he was the playing point forward even with Kyle Lowry and Corey Joseph on the court. The Raptors intended to run their offense through DeMar DeRozan, and it worked really well because he was able to find that seam, slash, and his decision making when he got to the rim on when to go up with it or when to kick out was really good. And I just, it's one of those games, even though it's a loss, like I take some solace from DeMar DeRozan's performance, Sean.
Yeah, like I think DeRozan, once he got hot in the first quarter, Phoenix was sending a second or third defender trying to trap him, and he kind of was forced to be a passer for a little bit, and he became like that point forward you're talking about, even with Joseph and Lowry on the court. So, and obviously his passing is so much better now than in his early years. So he's finding guys. I think he had a couple of assists, like beautiful assists to Scola. And it's great to see. Like today was a picture perfect DeMar DeRozan game. Like scoring wise, getting to the free throw line wise, rebounding wise, assist wise. It was perfect. So I think if we can bottle this and just bring it 50-60% of the time, we'd be in a good spot.
Yeah, he did miss 2 threes, and they were wide open threes. He should have nailed them. And it just the thought that came to me that we've talked about this many times, that if he could only shoot at like a 36% clip, we would see a legitimate force here, Andrew.
Yeah, he passed up another 2 threes as well where he had no one within probably 8 or 9 feet of him. And they didn't even bother closing out because they would have let him have it, and they were right not to, because he saw no one was coming and no one was going to come foul him, and he passed the ball up to someone who was more guarded.
Yeah. It's kind of in his head now almost.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like he knows we're talking about him. So
well, I think he just knows the ball won't go in.
Yeah. So it is unavoidable. We have to talk about these two guys, Patrick Patterson and Terrence Ross, both getting a big fat F in the quick reaction for this game. And rightfully, Terrence Ross, again, 14 minutes, 0 for 4. and a couple of embarrassing plays, man. There was one play where he dribbled. It's actually embedded in the quick reaction post. He took it to the left, lazily went up for it. And even before he went up, I was like, dude, that shot's going to get blocked because the defender's like, dude, right there. And sure enough, it got blocked from behind by Bledsoe, I think it was. And he got run back for 2 points. And I think that was the last we kind of saw of him. And Patrick Patterson essentially he hit 2 threes in the fourth quarter, which were canceled out immediately by Phoenix threes. But he's just absolutely no confidence. Zero. He is passing up shots. He doesn't even want to touch the ball. He's essentially, the only contribution he does is he helps swing the ball from the left to the right by being the go-to guy at the top who kind of swings it over. That's his only function right now on offense. And defensively, he's been, subpar for most of the last 10 games or so. But offensively, Shyam, this guy is just not confident.
Yeah, and ever since preseason, he wasn't good coming out from game one. Yeah. And with Patterson, I thought, give him a few weeks, he'll kind of catch his stride, but it's just not happening for the guy. And if that three is not falling, it's starting to affect his the rest of his game. I mean, he was one of our better defenders last year, if you remember, pick and roll defending, off the ball. He was a good defender, and he sort of regressed in that category as well. So it's sad to see it, but at the same time, I have a little bit more empathy for a guy like Patterson than I do for Terrence Ross, just because I know he's working his tail off, but he's just not able to catch his stride, and he probably will later in the season. But with Terrence Ross, it's more his head's just not in the game. It's so evident that he's so far gone from anything, in the game, that it's just so frustrating to watch as a fan. He's not his awareness is just not there. Taking bad shots, getting blocked, turning it over. It's getting to a point now where it's actually not funny how bad Terrence Ross is.
Andrew, do you think Patrick Patterson is still kind of affected by the fact that he lost his starting spot to Luis Scola?
I think that might be part of it, but as Shyam was saying, it goes back to the preseason. There's something, he has less confidence in his game. I think that losing his starting spot is probably contributed to that, but he's a guy whose game is so slow moving offensively, where if his shot is a very slow release, kind of like that slingshot motion, and his pump fake and his drive is really slow moving as well. So if he's just taking that extra second or 2 seconds to kind of nervously think about it before committing to either one of those decisions, it just grinds him to a halt. And I think he's got to be aware that that's happening. And I think that's contributing to even further down the rabbit hole of his confidence just kind of decaying, because I mean, I don't know where to go for there. But
his drive isn't really a drive, because you rarely actually see him put it on the floor and take it all the way to the rim. His drive is there to almost set up his mid-range jumper, but the drive's not good enough to actually even do that. So what it ends up doing is he drives 2 to 3 feet in and then stops and just passes it off. Mm-hmm. And that just doesn't look good on him or on the offense.
Yeah, he's not a very fluid dribbler either, so it's not like he can drive in and actually do something. So as you mentioned, when he's in there and he's in trouble, unless he's got an open shot, or if he's matched up against a smaller defender, he's going to pass it off. So that's not going to help his confidence there either. But I mean, let's give him some time, right? Maybe he's going to catch his stride soon. If his threes start falling, he can have an impact on the game, that's for sure. Yeah. And we saw that in the fourth quarter today. So. Yeah.
And just rounding off the discussion for the Phoenix game, James Johnson played 12 minutes, 4 for 7, 8 points. To me, I thought he had a strong game. He was guilty on maybe 1 or 2 of those Teletovic threes. Mm-hmm. But other than that, strong performance for him. And I mentioned earlier about his cutting. I think you saw him in this game cut to the rim and get a dunk by DeRozan finding him. You saw him take it off the dribble and get a score at the rim. So he's doing all the things you expect guys like Patterson and Ross to be doing. So I know we touched on it, Andrew, already with who should be getting more playing time here. But James Johnson with really another strong game.
Yeah, for sure. He's making the case. Pretty well since he's got to Toronto, he's been making a case for more minutes. And against a team like Phoenix, there's an opportunity to play him more at the 3 there, because they don't really have a dynamic athletic scorer at that spot. So it was great to see him get more minutes, but I think he ended up playing most of those minutes with the bench and at power forward as well. Mm-hmm. So it just not a lot of small forward spot for him.
Yeah. And I think if Casey sort of gets over his James Johnson hate. If he does, it'll be interesting to see to what extent, if Patterson keeps struggling, to what extent James Johnson will sort of start taking his 4-spot minutes off the bench. Yeah.
All right, and that brings us to the end of part 1. We'll take a quick break and come back right after this.
After a serious collision, you expect your insurance company to treat you with the respect and dignity you deserve. But for some reason, they're dragging their feet and denying your claim every step of the way. That's not right. I'm Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. When you've been involved in a serious collision, my law firm is there when you need the help the most. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Get Goldfinger today.
All right, welcome back to part 2 of Raptors Weekly. So if you like podcasts, the Raptors Republic has one more podcast that's added to the menu. It's on Friday nights. Blake Murphy, who's been doing an amazing job running the site, is going to be teaming up with William Liu and doing a Friday podcast. So you'll have something else to chew on or listen to on Friday mornings. So look forward to that. That airs on Friday morning on Raptors Republic. It's on iTunes and wherever the hell else you find this podcast. Let's move on to the upcoming schedule. But before we do that, last time we talked about the Raptors 905, it was in the context of Bebe and Bruno and who gets called up, and we kind of totally forgot about one guy, Delon Wright, who wasn't getting any playing time with the big club, for a few games now, and the Raptors finally sent him down to the 905. And in his first game, he was 9 for 9 field goals and had a pretty solid game, Sean.
Yeah, no, Delon Wright is definitely very confident down there in the D-League. He had like 24 points today again against Delaware. He might be one of those guys where he's almost, not as good enough not good enough just yet to crack the NBA rotation, but almost too good for the D-League, so he's one of those in-betweeners. And it's great to see, though, and I think he's well on his way to being the backup point guard, for us. So I think the 905 have been up and down, but I mean, let's face it, we're really concerned about 3 guys on this team. Caboclo, Delon Wright, and I guess you could throw in Ronald Roberts or Simbalar.
No, we can't throw in those. You're right the first time. We care about Bruno, Bebe, and Delon Wright. Everybody else.
So unless you're a homer, but I mean, other than that, you're really concerned about Caboclo and Delon Wright, and they've both been playing solid. Caboclo dropped like 20 points today again. We got completely outscored in the last 3 quarters, but again, encouraging from the players we care about for sure.
Mm-hmm. And we got to talk a little about Dwane Casey here, who's been getting a lot of criticism just lately, just based on some of the out of timeout, some of the not being able to inbound the ball a couple times. But at the same time, Andrew, he's 11-7, 4-2 at home, has had one of the toughest schedules in the league so far. At this point, I'd say this guy overall grade, if you had to give him, it would have to be a B+.
It's probably one of the Bs. I think you're probably right about that. You could argue over whether it's just a straight up B, a plus or a minus, but I think that a lot of the reasons we see the intense criticism of Casey, and I think I'm certainly guilty of this as well, is some of his biggest mistakes and biggest shortcomings as a coach have been consistent throughout his entire time here. So when the Raptors lose a game, or if they drop 2 in a row or something, and it's because of one of those issues, we run the emotional problem of just obsessing over all of the times we've seen this singular problem before and getting more bogged down in that and the fact that it's still an issue and that driving us nuts, instead of looking at the bigger picture and seeing how the team is changing and how they're playing and what's going on so far. So I do think that he's taking a lot of flack from that, but it is certainly very frustrating to see someone always have the exact same mistakes and keep on, like with the out of timeouts, with the way he runs offensive sets late in games, with the way he's developed young players. I think that it's fair to have an issue with that, but I do think that Casey's supporters also have a great point in pointing out that there is a lot more going on that's probably positive this season than negative, and some people are missing that.
Yeah, and a loss like Phoenix, Sean, I just find it hard to pin this one on the coach. You have guys who are simply underperforming, and Patrick Patterson, Terrence are also 2 guys. They're supposed to be, the first and second best players off the bench, but they're not even they're like fourth and fifth off the bench. Right? So it's when you have players underperforming to that degree, it's really hard to, put heat on the coach.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think we touched on some of those items in the roundtable Blake put up last week about Casey. But yeah, like I think he's done his job for the most part. But I think Andrew's bang on in the sense that those three issues we've seen from Casey have been sort of they've been fixtures throughout his time here in Toronto. So I think as fans, we kind of just hop on this Casey hating bandwagon whenever it's convenient to do so, and then just kind of think, he's not the right guy for the job. But I think deep down we all know that we can't really fire him right now unless we've got, a stable option in the running and ready to go. So I think you're right. I think Casey frustrates every single fan when he makes the same mistakes he's made, but I think, and Zarar, you're right too, he's had to face a ton of challenges coming into the season too. Completely new team, 11 of first 15 on the road, and two basically completely underperforming bench players who are expected to be our two best bench players. So given all of those facts, I think he's doing his. I think he's doing what we should expect him to do. And hopefully, the latter half of the season when things kind of get easier, we'll see a better team.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not the biggest fan of the guy, and Will wrote an article on his site about what are we kind of doing with Dwane Casey. There's an opportunity cost to having him be the head coach because he's probably not the long-term guy here, but I just don't see the problems the Raptors are having right now, especially over this week. Well, not this week, over the last couple of weeks. I don't really see that as coaching fault. As I said, the offense overall, yeah, there's a lot of ISO in it, but there's a lot of good things about it as well. And I don't think coaching is the number one problem right now. It's simply the players aren't producing for him right now. And he's like Patrick Patterson is getting open looks. Terrence Ross is getting the opportunity. They're just not producing. And to put that on Casey is a little unfair. Yeah.
But at what point, Zarar, though, do you think it becomes Casey's issue when he continues to go to Ross and continues to go to Patterson and not look at guys like James Johnson and even Norman Powell and kind of just continues going with something that's not working?
I think right about now, I think there's enough of a sample size in the season where we're like 18 games in at this point, and these guys are just not performing. And Ross is costing you not just on offense, but also on defense. And that's the surprising part for me, is that historically, when a young player is not performing for Casey, he tends to bench them. He simply does not play them. Like Valanciunas is probably the biggest example, especially on defense. Ross is not doing nothing on defense, yet he's not getting punished for it. And that's the confusing part for me about Casey, is that why he's giving Terrence Ross such a long leash when in historically he's not known for that.
Well, I think there's a part of that, though, is also looking at if the team is going to hit the ceiling that it could possibly hit. The reality is you can't just cut bait on someone like Terrence Ross and Patrick Patterson. You can't just say, we're going to bench them and we'll find someone to give us realistic value in a trade for them, even though we've made it clear that we've completely given up on them. I think that if you have a goal for the season of where you want to get to and where you want to be able to reach as a team, you accept that you can't get that high unless you can help these guys turn their games around. And having them not play whatsoever is not going to be a portion of that. So you need to try and find a role from them in the team and try to get them to shoot through that issues with their confidence and find something. Because if they can't, then you're stuck with an expensive asset that you're not getting anything out of, and you have taken away a possibility of the team being better.
Andrew, do you think Ross is a movable contract at this point?
I don't know. Like he's looked really bad recently. I've never given up on Ross. I've never thought that it always seems that there must be a way to figure out how to use him well. I don't know if that's something that he needs to be supported emotionally and through the team, and as far as like his role and that works, or if it's just his style of play just doesn't fit in with what we're doing. I'm not sure, but when you're that size and that athletic and you can hit a corner three that well, there is a spot for you in the NBA.
Yeah. And the reason we talk about Ross so much in this podcast is because that really is one of our biggest areas of need is backup shooting guard, because it influences how much DeMar DeRozan plays, how much Kyle Lowry plays, how good our three-point shooting is, how good our perimeter defense is. He's really a critical factor on this team, and that's why we dedicate so much time about on Terrence Ross. It's not because we hate him. It's just because we feel his role is really, really important. And if we get production out of there, like, we're going to be good for the season, basically.
Yeah. I think, yeah, and exactly. I think the parts of Terrence Ross that tease us as fans, like the things that Andrew mentioned in terms of being athletic and being able to hit that three that consistently, is the same reason we have all that hate. And I think part of it is also in the losses. Terrence Ross's performance stick out like a sore thumb. In a day like today, where we could have totally used that off the bench, it makes it look that much worse.
Yeah. Well, the week ended, and there's a new week ahead of us. It's a 4-game week, and we got some really good matchups here. The Raptors head out on the road again. They go to Atlanta on Wednesday. Then it's a back-to-back. That's when they have a bit of a homestand. They go Denver, Golden State, and the Lakers all at home. It's part of a 6-game homestand, which starts on December 3rd and ends on December 11th versus the Bucks. But for next week on tap, we got Atlanta on the road here, 8 o'clock, December 2nd. Atlanta, Andrew, I believe last time we talked about Atlanta, you were selling your Hawks stock. Are you still selling? Is it still for sale?
I was definitely selling it preseason. I've been surprised at how much they've been able to replicate what they were doing last year, just without kind of the separation. Like, they're still running the same stuff. They're still executing. They don't have nearly the depth they did last year, and they're not beating teams by the kind of point differential that they were. But I mean, they're still a really good offense. They're still a really dynamic front court with Horford and Millsap as far as the things they can do and how that's uniquely difficult to guard and recover from. But yeah. I don't see them being better than maybe like the 4th or 5th best team in the Eastern Conference, but they're a decent team.
Yeah. It's like no matter what the Hawks do, they're just not going to get any playoff respect, just because they are a team without a true star, and those tend to just tend to fizzle out in the playoffs. So it almost doesn't really matter how good their regular season is, because you almost know what they're going to do in the playoffs, Sean.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, and like the East is better this year too, so it almost feels like, and not to the same extent, but it almost feels like the teams in between that are just muddled up between seeds 2 through 6 kind of all seem the same, if you know what I mean. Like, it just seems like it will just figure it out in the playoffs type of situation, and I think Atlanta's one of those teams, and I totally agree. I think not having a star kind of puts them below everyone's radar, and they kind of just sneak up on some people most nights. So, I mean, they're a good team. They lost Amari Carroll. They don't have as much depth as Andrew mentioned, but I think that they're a good team. They'll be in the playoffs. They'll probably be between 3 and 6 in terms of seed.
Yeah, you can. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Like, you can play well against Atlanta and lose, but it's. I think the thing, like, they were so bad in the playoffs last year, which is weird because they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they just looked so beatable in every round that they played.
Yeah. They remind me a little bit of Phoenix, where you have a lot of guys who can switch. They tend to switch a lot. Definitely 2 to 4 they switch. They got good point guard play through Teague and Schroeder. There's no really big star on the team, but as a unit, they function really well. But at the same time, the Raptors have had success with them. They haven't really had an answer for DeMar DeRozan this year. Last year, he was guarded by Carroll, and he contained him to a bit. But this year, they really don't have that stopper at the wing that they had in Carroll. And DeMar DeRozan, if he plays his cards right, and if he has a similar attitude and approach that he had in Phoenix, I see him getting his points against the Hawks in Atlanta. Who's going to be checking him here? Is it Bazemore?
Yeah.
Bazemore? Yeah, I figured. So let's start with Shyam. Shyam, what's your call here?
This is probably the toughest one to predict, I think, on this week's sked. I'm going to go with a win. I think Atlanta hasn't been a friendly environment for us in the past, but I think we'll squeak one out here. After today's loss, I think the team will be frustrated and kind of bounce back. And obviously we've got challenging games ahead with Golden State and stuff. So I think we squeak this one out for no discernible reason, though.
Andrew?
I'm going to take Atlanta. I'm just a little concerned about the Horford-Bismack matchup. The way that Millsap is going to be able to bring. I think that it's going to be hard for us to rebound defensively with the way they're going to play against us, and either it's going to be hard to rebound defensively or the driving lanes are going to be wide open for Schroeder and.
Maybe Dwane Casey throws out Bebe a little bit against his former team.
Maybe the revenge game.
Do you see Bebe being a factor here, Andrew?
I do not see Bebe being a factor. I would love for that to be the case, but unless there's some sort of, I don't know, I can't even come up with like a comical scenario in which Bebe is a factor. It's not like it's just
save for maybe the wide open dunk like today.
But before he was tasked with guarding Teletovic, he did catch the ball on a DeMar DeRozan dump off and slammed it home to the joy of the crowd. So let's not write him off.
That's right.
Man.
Giant man dunks from 1 foot. Read all about it.
Hey, Bismack Biyombo dreams of that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'll last week I was pessimistic. I was like 1-2, and the Raptors ended up winning the games that I thought they would lose and losing the ones that I thought I'd win. So this week I'm going to go with a win in Atlanta. I think DeMar DeRozan continues his good form of play and pulls out a win for the Raptors. I'm really liking DeMar DeRozan versus Phoenix, man. That's a prototypical DeMar DeRozan that I dream of. And if he's playing like that, give him the max right now. Give him more than the max, whatever it is.
The super max?
Oh, God.
The Kobe max. All right.
Oh, man.
Oh, it's back-to-back. The next night, it's Denver. This one is at home. The Nuggets are the Nuggets. You never kind of are afraid of them. They're kind of there. They're never going to really. You know what I mean? They're one of those teams.
They're a team that exists.
They're the Nuggets. They're not going up. They're not going down. They're just well, they may be going down because they are 6-11, and currently they have lost 6 straight. And I'm surprised there haven't been any Kenneth Faried to Toronto rumors this week, Shyam.
Yeah, we heard a lot more of them earlier on, but yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Denver is just one of those teams that's just kind of in the middle of the pack. They're kind of like Indiana in the East. They're just there. No one really knows about them or hears about them or talks about them other than probably Denver fans themselves. But I think we'll win this one as well. This team is clearly in a rut, and I think we'll. The only thing is it's a back-to-back, and it's a Thursday home game, which is weird. We don't normally have those.
We got like 8 of those this year.
Yeah. So that's kind of a mix-up. But I think we'll bounce back and win this one, especially if we lose in Atlanta. I think we have to win this game, given the fact that Golden State would be coming up next.
Yeah. If you're at the ACC for this one, you'll be seeing the likes of Randy Foye, Daryl Arthur, Nikolai Jokic, Emmanuel Mudiay. This should have been Drake night right here.
There's some interesting.
If you want to keep the streak alive, then for sure.
Yeah, like Moutier is interesting to watch. But like they're playing him and is Gary Harris. Is that he there as well? I think. Like they're playing a lot of young guys on the wings, and they're
J.J. Hickson's on that team. You
yeah,
any
like
interest
they're
in J.J. Hickson, Andrew?
No, not a lot of interest. You know what? Danilo Gallinari is quietly having a really good offensive season. He's scoring really efficiently. He's getting to the line way more than I thought he would. He's bouncing back from his knee injury very nicely. But
has he had a better career than Andrea Bargnani?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just checking.
Okay.
Just checking.
All right.
So we're in agreement that this is going to be a win.
Yes.
It's hard to argue. Just a shout out to Will Barton, who's keeping my fantasy team alive, getting a shit ton of playing time in Denver as they continue to lose games at a rapid rate. So that's 2-0 so far, consensus. And then we got Golden State, whose streak really should have been snapped if it weren't for the officials not calling travel on Steph Curry and then blowing 2 other calls late in San Francisco. Now, they come to Toronto on it's a Saturday night game, and David Aldridge of TNT fame has said that this is where the streak will end. He says that the Golden State Warriors will end their streak in Toronto. Thoughts on that, Andrew?
Well, we are one of the 10 teams that beat the 1996, 97, 72, and 10 Bulls. So maybe that's
seen the commercials.
Maybe that's what they're thinking. It's just that's the franchise of destiny that just brings down historical greatness. Mm-hmm. I mean, like the game they played earlier on this season was close, but I don't know how you watch the Warriors play and then watch anyone else play and feel comfortable making a prediction about when it is that they lose, unless you have some sort of inside information on. Like, is he thinking? Yeah, baby. Is he thinking like that maybe they're going to rest some guys? Like, is that or is Aldridge just drawing his line in the sand on Toronto?
I think he just wants a few retweets from Raptor fans.
Okay. Is it one of those things where if you're wrong, no one cares, and if you're right, you look like a genius?
Yeah.
It's just there's low stakes.
That's literally exactly
Bernie
what
Sanders,
it is.
2016.
Oh man. Well, we were one of the teams that almost beat them, right? One of the few. Brooklyn, I think, was one of them too. So,
Yeah.
And in their gym too, right?
Yeah.
So,
Brooklyn took them to overtime, and the only other close game they had, and I really got to look hard here because most of them have been blowouts, is no, can't find one. The rest have all been blowouts. but did you watch? Did you see Magic Johnson's tweet before they played the Lakers?
No.
For win number, I think it was 16. They go, he was like, Lakers, we're the ones that end streaks or something like that.
All right.
And they proceeded to get blown out by like, I don't know,
All
like
of the
40
points.
points or something.
yeah.
Well, the man's an optimist.
Yeah. So are you guys optimistic for this one?
No.
No.
Come on.
It just doesn't
I
seem
think-
like a reasonable stance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go with the conservative prediction on this one. We'll go with a loss.
Well, I'm gonna hit a retweet button on David Aldridge and
Nice.
say we're gonna win we're gonna win this one. I think the Raptors are wounded from the last loss in Oakland, and they're gonna come back and focus their energies on this one. And I think Bebe's gonna come out and neutralize Ezekili or whatever the guy's name is.
Azili?
Ezeli. Yeah, Justice Ezeli. And I really want to see Klay Thompson cry.
Weird.
I don't know how that happens. I just want to see him like in pain.
Is it like is it you just don't like his face? Is it something about his
I
game?
think,
like did you
no,
meet
no,
him
no,
somewhere?
His face. Yeah.
Really?
Just don't like him.
He doesn't.
Just do not like him.
He so rarely expresses emotion.
That's part of the reason why I don't like him.
Okay. You feel like he's a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got this like
I-
fake swagger, which I don't like.
Fake
I'm a
swagger.
hater, man. You
Wow.
know that.
Yeah,
We
you're,
hate one.
you're going comment section now. Fake swagger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just hope DeMar DeRozan throws down like a dunk that he threw in Utah just on like
On like
Klay
Draymond
Thompson.
Green,
Yeah,
just
something like that.
posterizing material.
Yeah, something needs to happen. So I'm gonna pick a win here.
Okay.
So that was an easy decision for me, and the next one should be dead easy for pretty much everyone here. We got the Lakers are coming in on Monday, so we'll defer that conversation to next week's podcast. But that's going to be a win too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that's basically just Kobe Bryant's farewell tour at this point, right?
Hey, would you guys go see this Laker team just to watch like Kobe Bryant's like one last time? Like, would you pay money to see that?
No, I don't want to see this Kobe Bryant. It's just sad. It's just like watching the death of your childhood, like being more aware of time passing, like a statement on the inevitable decay of flesh.
Yeah, he did confirm today that he would retire at the end of the season, but some would say he's already retired.
Yeah.
He's not scoring many more points playing, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I'm kind of surprised that you guys are a bit pessimistic on the whole Golden State thing, especially after the Raptors played them so tight the first time. I honestly thought that if Dwane Casey hadn't screwed up by playing Luis Scola and Valanciunas at the same time in that second quarter stretch where the Warriors were like 9 for 10, this would have been a different outcome. So I don't know. I'm surprised you guys aren't even like.
I don't know how you... Go ahead.
The refs called it the right way, and Corey Joseph hits a cold-blooded three-pointer to win the game.
Yeah. Andrew, I'm giving you one more chance to change your call.
I don't know how you can possibly think that Dwane Casey this time around will outcoach Luke Walton, the greatest coach in the history of professional sports, who is undefeated.
Interesting fact: the wins that the Warriors are getting are not being credited to Luke Walton.
He's 0-0.
Yeah.
I heard
all
about
going to
that.
Steve Kerr.
Sure, like whatever.
No comment. All right.
I think it's pretty wacky, and the NBA is actually looking into it, right? They're trying to fix it now.
They've got the best people on it. Because it's something they could just do if they want. They could be like, we'll send them over to Luke. We'll box those wins up. We've got them in.
Well, it's a pretty
Curry's
big deal.
office now.
I mean, it's if they're on the verge of history, like if they actually go 30 and whatever, 33 wins or whatever, like that's a pretty big deal, I think.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever the official tracker is, though, like in the story of the season, there would always be an explanation of that, which is why it's silly not to just give them to him, because I think everyone understands that Kerr is still helping to run the team. It's just not there. But Luke Walton is the dude subbing people in and out of the game and making decisions there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Just final point, which I forgot to mention in the podcast. Against the Suns, there was a play exactly at the 2-minute mark where Kyle Lowry appeared to in a one possession game basically appeared to knock the ball cleanly out of Bledsoe's hands as he was going to the rim.
Yes.
I don't think it was a one possession game. I think it was a couple possessions games. Just want to be clear on that. But apology coming up from the NBA again in their 2-minute report, Andrew?
I don't think so. I think that's it. Clearly looked like a block to me, but like you need to be certain that he didn't, touch a finger or get the wrist on the follow through or anything like that afterwards. I don't think that's one where you're like, hey, we blew this definitely, and sorry about that because you maybe should have won. This is just like, well,
50-50.
See you later.
Yeah, okay.
No, these apologies are like the most inconsequential thing ever, though. It's a complete joke.
Yeah. All right. So with that, part 2 ends, and so ends the podcast. Once again, if you like the show and if you want more audio content from Raptors Republic, do check out the Friday Pod by Blake Murphy and William Liu. It's on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud, and you can also click on them with your mouse and download the MP3 or whatever. So thanks, Andrew. We'll let you go back to your haze.
Yeah, back to my hibernation.
Dark room with plenty substances on the shelves and all.
Yeah.
that.
Now, why do you think I'm on Luke Walton's side?
Shyam, thanks, man.
Thanks a lot.
All
Take
right.
care, guys.
Okay, next time.